You're listening to Fuzzled, the podcast for highly attuned entrepreneurs who want more calm, more clarity, and a business that finally feels good to run. Let's take a breath and dive in. Hello and welcome back to Fuzzled, the podcast that helps confused, overwhelmed entrepreneurs find clarity without the online chaos. Today's episode, yet again, is a really important one. Not because it's tactical, but because it's personal and quietly powerful. If you've ever been told that you're too sensitive, if you feel things deeply, if other people's moods, feedback, or energy affect you more than you'd like it to, this episode is for you, my friends, because today I want to gently reframe something that you may have spent years trying to fix. Your sensitivity isn't weakness. It's a structural advantage when you build your business to support it. This episode then is called Sensitivity is Strength, the hidden advantage of highly attuned entrepreneurs. Let's break it down. So let's start with something simple but often overlooked. Highly attuned entrepreneurs don't just communicate, they connect. If you're sensitive, empathetic, emotionally intelligent, you tend to notice subtle shifts in people, read between the lines, sense hesitation, doubt, or readiness, and respond with care, not scripts. That ability creates something incredibly valuable in business: resonance. When your audience feels seen and understood, trust forms faster. Not because you're louder, but because you're more accurate. That's why sensitive entrepreneurs often attract deeply loyal clients and not just casual followers. Which brings us to an interesting point, which is why empathy builds stronger brands without hype. Well, strong brands aren't built on volume, they're built on emotional safety. This means that empathetic entrepreneurs are well suited to naturally create brands that feel grounded, human, trustworthy, and calm. As a result, your audience doesn't feel sold to, they feel guided, and that's why emotional intelligence quietly outperforms aggressive marketing over time. Trust compounds, hype burns out. And that trust serves as a great virtue because highly sensitive entrepreneurs often make exceptional coaches, mentors, consultants, and leaders. Why? Well, because leadership isn't about dominance, it's about attunement. To my mind, you don't lead by force, you lead by understanding. You listen well, you ask better questions, you create psychological safety. And that's not soft, that's so effective. But let's be honest, always. Sensitivity only becomes a strength when it's supported by structure in your business. Sensitivity only becomes a strength when it's supported by structure in business. Without boundaries and systems, sensitivity turns into overgiving, emotional exhaustion, people-pleasing, and blurred work-life edges. That's not because you're doing business wrong, it's because your nervous system is absorbing too much without protection. Sensitivity needs containers, and infrastructure is what allows empathy to remain sustainable. And that's because the shift isn't to toughen up, it's to design smarter. What do I mean by that? Well, clear offers so you're not constantly explaining, predictable rhythms so your energy isn't constantly drained, boundaries that protect your focus and emotional capacity, and communication that's warm and clear. When you do that, empathy stops being exhausting. It becomes magnetic. Okay, so let's move to the next section of the show, which is buzzword bingo. So in this episode, we're not going to look at a marketing acronym or buzzword as such, but we are going to look at an acronym which is very apt for this episode, and it might be new to some of you. HSP. It stands for Highly Sensitive Person. It's not a diagnosis, it's not a flaw, and it's far more common than what people realise. The term was coined back in the 1990s by psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron, who identified that around 15 to 20% of the world's population process the world more deeply. Highly sensitive people tend to notice subtleties others miss. They process information deeply, feel emotions strongly, and become overstimulated more easily. It's interesting to note that many people don't realise they're HSPs until later in life. I mean, I didn't recognise it in myself until my late 40s, and that's okay. Understanding that this doesn't limit you, it absolutely liberates you, because once you know your wiring, you can stop fighting it and start designing around it. And on a final note here, for HSP entrepreneurs, boundaries aren't optional, they're essential. I have to say, for years, I thought my sensitivity meant I wasn't cut out for business. I felt too much, overthought everything, and I carried feedback much longer than what I wanted to. So I tried to harden myself. More hustle, more output, 50 million DMs in a day, more pressure. And it nearly broke me, I have to say. The holy moly moment came when I realised the problem wasn't me, it was the structure and the way of doing things that I was forcing myself into. But once I built calmer systems, clearer boundaries and predictable rhythms, my sensitivity stopped draining me and it started to guide me, and that's when things began to flow. So if today's episode resonated, there's a good chance boundaries are the next layer of work for you. No rigid walls, but supportive containers. Exactly the type that you'd find in my boundaries guide that covers everything from physical health, emotional capacity, work-life balance, your relationships and decision making. Inside you'll find reflection prompts, satisfaction assessments, practical strategies and gentle problem-solving tools. Because boundaries aren't selfish, they're a form of self-respect and self-care. They protect your energy so your sensitivity can stay as strength. As usual, you'll find the link in the show notes. And remember, you're not behind, you're not broken, you're just deeply wired. And with the right structure, that's a very powerful place to build from. Thanks for listening to Fuzzled, where structure beats hustle every time. If today brought you clarity, you'll love my weekly Friday feeling emails. Calm, honest reflections with practical steps to help you grow without the overwhelm. Join the Marketing Clarity Club at paulculshaw.com and I'll see you in your inbox. Take care and keep choosing calm over chaos.